Welcome back to Close Up. Of all the Democrats at the top of the ballot in New Hampshire, many believed Congressman Chris Pappas was the most vulnerable in this election. But he proved them wrong, winning by an even bigger margin than he did in 2020. As he heads back to Washington for another 2 years, Congressman Chris Pappas joins us this morning on Close Up. Thanks for being here, Congressman.
Good morning. Great to be with you.
So what is the message you're taking from the voters that they sent on Election Day?
Well, I think the message was clear on Election Day. Voters in New Hampshire want folks in Washington and in Concord who are going to be common sense minded, who are going to roll up their sleeves and focus on the issues and offer the kind of solutions that can really help, whether it's addressing economic issues, whether it's protecting personal freedoms, or a number of other concerns that voters expressed in this election. So I think this election is a rejection of the kind of extremism that we've seen in the Republican Party, but also an affirmation of the way that we've been going about our work, passing a major bipartisan infrastructure law, passing legislation to invest in U.S. manufacturing, to care for our veterans, to support our small businesses. These are the kind of things that I think are going to make a difference for New Hampshire as we move forward. We've got more work to do on a number of fronts, but the only way we're going to get it done is by working together, hearing each other out. I mean, we have this conversation at a point in time where we're unsure of the makeup of Congress, of both the House and the Senate. That's really not going to change how I operate in Washington. I'm going to still focus on working across the aisle, forging solutions, and I think that the voters of this state sent a message that they want cooperative leadership at all levels of government.
Back to your race specifically, we all thought it was going to be close, and based on historical trends, it seemed like this was going to be potentially a more favorable year for Republicans. Did you have any sense that it would be this big of a margin?
Well, we were confident that we had strong support across the board in New Hampshire, and I'm the kind of person that builds a coalition every time I run for office. It's not just about getting the votes of Democrats. We convince a lot of independents, as well as bringing some Republicans along, too. I was out for a walk in my neighborhood this morning. A woman gave me a thumbs up. She said, "I'm a Republican. I voted for you." We see that all over the state, and so that's the responsibility that I have moving forward, to make sure that I'm not just, playing to the base, that we're talking to the broad swath of Granite Staters that want progress on our economy, that want us to address kitchen table issues. That's how we win elections, but also that's how you deliver policy in a way that really can make a difference for folks. So we had the sense that we had strong support out there, but you never know until the vote is actually held. And I think it was a good sign for New Hampshire that we had a record turnout on Tuesday for a midterm election, even exceeding what we saw in 2018. We had a lot of young people voting for the first time. I met a number of them at the polls. Many of them were voting on the issue of abortion rights and protecting the right to choose in this country. So there are a lot of reasons why people came out, but I think it was a good day for New Hampshire, and I think it sent a strong message about the kind of state that we are.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like underneath all the competitive fire, there seemed to be a genuine respect between you and Karoline Leavitt.
Oh, absolutely. And I enjoyed getting to know her. She was a fierce competitor and someone whom I respected in this campaign. And we had a nice conversation on Tuesday night when she called. And I was willing to make that call if it didn't go my way on Tuesday. But I think now that the election is over and the dust has settled, the focus needs to be on how we move forward to address the problems of the day and, act on what the voters were looking for on Tuesday.
You mentioned the balance of power in the Congress that's still up in the air and may not be known for some time. You said you're going to be the same guy down there, but how is Washington going to operate when the margin is this narrow, either for Republicans or Democrats in the House?
Well, we've had a close margin over the last 2 years. I think that Democrats have like a 5-seat majority right now. We could be looking at something that's flipped with Republicans having a very narrow majority in Washington. It makes it hard for parties to govern without bringing others along with them and building coalitions. And that's why I think the hallmark of this Congress has been things like the bipartisan infrastructure law, where you get buy-in from some Republicans and you get the kind of buy-in in the Senate that you need to get to 60 votes. We're still going to be facing that threshold in the Senate on major pieces of legislation. So that should continue to force people to come together and to work together to solve problems. So I think it's an important obstacle to overcome to pass meaningful legislation, but I hope it keeps the extremists at bay and allows those of us who are pragmatic, focused on solutions, to do our jobs.
Do you think if somehow the Democrats do retain the majority and it's only 1 or 2 seats, could he be even narrower than it is now, does that mean that you kind of have to fall back to Speaker Pelosi because she's done the job for so long, or is it time for new leadership?
Well, I don't think so, and I think she has indicated she was willing to serve 2 terms. Now, her family is obviously been through a lot, and so she'll be making an announcement at some point over the next few weeks. I think we have leadership elections on November 30th at the end of the month. And so, we'll be back having those conversations. But we need new voices in leadership all across the board in Washington. I think there are a number of exciting prospects of folks in the Democratic caucus that are looking to raise their profiles in leadership. And those are the kind of conversations we're going to be having over the next few weeks.
And over the next few weeks, we're going to be having conversations about the First in the Nation primary. Obviously, the DNC Rules and Bylaws Committee will announce what it plans to do with its calendar. Is it time for Democrats like yourself to start getting a little bit more vocal about defending First in the Nation status?
Well, we have been, and I'll continue to make calls and continue to talk to whoever will listen on the DNC about why New Hampshire should remain first. And I know that our delegation will do that work as our state party does here to defend its primary. We've had the first primary for a century. We've done a great job with it. We get a clear result on election night, and that allows candidates to move forward beyond New Hampshire, but also to retain the kind of conversations and knowledge that they have about voters and what they're looking for in an election. So we add value. There's no question about that. We also have a state law that says we're going to go first, and that remains on the books, and that's something that I know our Secretary of State is going to continue to work to implement. So I think we'll be able to make the case to the Democratic Party, and we would ask any Republicans who are out there to chime in support of New Hampshire Democrats being first. We should be first on both sides of the aisle.
I guess you guys have been vocal, but is it time to draw more contrasts, to point out things like, hey, Nevada is still counting votes right now, and New Hampshire's already put this to bed?
Well, I think that's right, and I think New Hampshire has worked with other states in the past to help make this case. What's very clear from 2020 is that the caucus system, and particularly what happened in Iowa, was an embarrassment. And I think that there are going to be a lot of folks that are helping to shape the calendar that aren't going to look favorably on Iowa. But New Hampshire can stand on its own. And I think when you take into account the other early states, including South Carolina and Nevada, represents the diversity of the Democratic Party, also the future of what our party should look like. And New Hampshire has a place in that.
All right, one last question for you that'll take you a little bit farther afield here outside of your own party. Do you think Governor Chris Sununu should run for president?
Well, I haven't thought too much about it. I guess that's something he's going to have to address. Folks have been talking about it here for many months. And hey, I think anytime you'd have someone from New Hampshire stepping up to run for president might be a good thing for our state to put New Hampshire on the map and show the rest of the country how we do things here. But I think he was just elected to do a job for 2 years, so he probably should stay focused on that. It looks like the state legislature is going to have a very close margin between Republicans and Democrats. So that's an opportunity for Governor Sununu and people on both sides of the aisle to bring the state together.
All right, Congressman Chris Pappas, thanks for joining us on Close Up, and we'll have you back here once we figure out who's a majority in Washington.
Thanks, Adam.
Appreciate your time.